So Ruben Amorim has discovered the task for his redemption period in the Northwest, and Omar Berrada remains confident of a Premier League winning future at Manchester United. We're digesting both, as well as the futures of Bryan Mbeumo and Roger Fernandes, while looking at your questions and much more. It's episode 54 of your Theatre of Red. Has it been a week already? We need to slow down, people. I am getting greyer by the day, and all of this Manchester United conversation is doing absolutely nothing to help me. Now, it may be pre-season, but there are plenty of healthy conversation points to keep us ticking over. Surprise, surprise. Now, where better to start than with Omar Berrada and his continued confidence and progression and a clear pathway towards success in the Northwest. United's CEO obviously recently spent time with United We Stand Supremo Andy Mitten, and that was about digesting everything from his vision for the team to his confidence in Ruben Amorim and a sustained desire for Premier League success by 2028. Crucially, the Frenchman emphasised recognition of the suffering across the fan base and how that fed into the dressing room and across the club. He mentioned the importance of investing in the seasons to come, and that played a significant role in the decision to install Amorim mid-season. And that was to gain familiarity with the squad, the surroundings, the club, the fan base, and every single thing that is essential for success in Manchester. This is something that I have attempted to embrace towards, go back as far as the days leading up to his appointment. I stated on this very podcast several times, essentially, we have witnessed the definition of short-term pain in the most painful of examples. However, in business, just like life, sometimes you need to take a deep breath and you need to roll the dice and back an idea to achieve something special, something that differentiates you from everybody else, and something that Manchester United are famous for, and it's having that special something about this football club. As I say weekly, nothing is guaranteed in football. Absolutely nothing. Truthfully, there is zero evidence that Amorim will succeed at Old Trafford. Factually, there's probably more grounds to say that his tenure will be another short chapter in this club's history and the various managerial appointments that we have seen post Sir Alex Ferguson. However, with what is now the spine of a settled management team across the coaching side and also into the supporting technical team, there is an agreed vision about player recruitment, academy promotion and integration, the necessary blend between experience, ambition, and the fine lines between balancing multiple spinning plates. That's a never-ending task for any Manchester United Supremo. Interestingly, Berrada emphasised his joy in the work accomplished to date with optimism for the season ahead. Now, to you, to me, to anybody else, it may be difficult to understand that when factoring in the worst Premier League finish in the club's history and a lack of continental exploration for the season ahead, painfully. But this is where, as supporters, we need to remove ourselves from the sensationalism of modern-day media and the never-ending nonsense. And that's what it is, people. It is nonsense across certain subsections of mainstream outlets. For the first time in what is nearly 2 decades, we're witnessing mass recruitment of significantly talented academy prospects. We have inherited one of the most competent coaches in European football with an energetic team of revered tactical colleagues. As we know, Matheus Cunha has shrugged off the possibility of European football and more money to join this group because he understands the heritage in the Northwest, and he also embraces the ambitious plan that has resulted in Berrada smiling from ear to ear. It is worthwhile noting that despite their flaws, Ineos do remain willing and able to sit and to discuss their motives with genuine supporters, such as Andy Mitten. That in itself offers a glimmer, even just a glimmer, of positivity following 2 decades of ignorance and dismissive notions. Now, please don't get me wrong. Don't listen to this and think, oh, this fella is an Ineos supporter. I'm not jumping to the front of the pack and screaming for unity and widespread support. There should still be apprehension, rightfully so. But the foundations for sustained success are real. And a winning system requires essential cogs to maintain the expected success at Manchester United. Understand, there is no perfect science here. Look no further than Manchester City. City's fall from champions to third place with a 20-point deficit underlines the critical failures that can occur when one of those integral cogs stops functioning. Inevitably, it'll never be highlighted in the same manner as it would be across the city, but the creation of a fully functioning structure behind the scenes that can only benefit Amorim and his players every week. How could it do anything else? And when you consider the domestic schedule for the 2025-26 season, and an opening weekend meeting with the perennial Premier League bridesmaid that is Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, never have the expectations for a response been so clear. I find this fascinating. I've read mixed reviews regarding the calendar for Manchester United, with an understandable point of view expressed by many on either side of the spectrum. We've received several queries regarding the upcoming season, and Stephen Mercer has emailed in and he asked the following. Given the nature of our fixtures to kick off a crucially important campaign, with Arsenal, City and Chelsea in the opening 5, how do you feel about Amorim's chances of success in what is a make or break couple of months for the former sporting man? Because I'm to say thank you for everything you are doing. You are a breath of fresh air in the United community. Well, firstly, thank you, Steve. I have sent the brown envelope via registered post, so it'll be with you at the start of the week. Now, call me crazy, but I like the fixtures and the undeniable promise that this can bring. Don't get me wrong, I'm aware that this could end tragically, but I've always been a supporter of tackling our one-time domestic rivals early before they generate any form of head of steam heading into November and December, without even considering the fixture list. Every football supporter knows that Amorim and his squad will want to race out of the blocks at 100 miles per hour. And the aim with that is to set the tone for a season of redemption. That has got to be obvious for anybody, even individuals who cannot stand the sound of Manchester United. When I discussed Berrada earlier, one point that should be emphasised is that from where Manchester United stands today, everything has to be upward. And forgetting all that has been and gone, you have to look at it that positive progression is the only tonic for this football club, despite the necessity to offload so many would-be superstars. There are many first-team players who remain desperate to atone for last season. And just be totally practical about this. From August the 17th up to the October internationals, Manchester United will face Arsenal, City, Chelsea and Liverpool, with Brighton, 2 trips to London and 2 of the newly promoted sides sandwiched in between. So let's call a spade here. On paper, that is a terrifying prospect for a side that has finished 15th. There's no escaping that. However, despite all that has been and gone, there is much to be said about the danger of a wounded animal, particularly one the size and the stature with a supporter base of Manchester United. When you factor in our PFA-nominated Player of the Year in Bruno Fernandes opting to stay, alongside the arrival of Cunha and the very real possibility of Bryan Mbeumo, we will touch on more of that shortly, alongside players like Ahmad, set to grow from strength to strength. I don't think that I would be overly fond of my side travelling to Old Trafford in the opening weeks of this season, because realistically speaking, everything expresses the possibility of a major reaction from a sleeping giant. I'm looking at this from the perspective that Manchester United simply must respond to the travesty of last season, and nothing else will suffice. Given that, Steve, I am happy that we get to do that against the bigger sides, because the benefits of positive performances and results can supply a momentum that no amount of money can purchase in a transfer window. Inevitably, it could all go the other way, and we may read headlines about the imminent departure of Amorim in October, but you can call me a lunatic, and many people do. I am expecting a positive showing from this group, and what better way to start than by setting a statement of intent against a group of narcissists from down south? Naturally, So much of the potential success of this side relies on a stable and a coherent front three that can effectively provide goals following passages of sustained pressure and meticulous build-up. That all comes part and parcel with Ruben Amorim's philosophy. You can say whatever you like about Rasmus Højlund and the level of negativity that he has generated across the online fan base, but a forward line of individuals who are focused on their metrics as opposed to the teams has proven to be a tad bit underproductive in Manchester. I don't think anybody is going to argue with that. We have already analysed the benefits of Cunha's arrival in previous episodes and how he's going to impact this system from a goal-scoring perspective. You'll note that I was amongst the few who highlighted his ability to lead the line in a versatile setup, not as a traditional number 9, but one that has the capabilities to orchestrate a modern-day attack. Now, this was an opinion that was challenged by a collection of would-be tactical aficionados online, but it has started to gain momentum, and it was recently highlighted by Laurie Whitwell when discussing the possibilities of a rotating number 9 between the Brazilian and Bryan Mbeumo. Now, presently, Mbeumo is not a Manchester United player, so it may seem somewhat odd to discuss him as a weapon in this new look attack. But in all honesty, I have been regularly updated about a confidence in Carrington and a sense that there is no need to panic across the fan base because individuals remain committed to completing this deal. As I've said in the podcast several weeks ago, Ruben Amorim, Omar Berrada, and Jason Wilcox want all of their major signings completed as soon as possible. And the whole idea with that is that they share a view of all of these acquisitions being present during the preseason tour of America. Make no mistake, this has not changed. And the priority remains the attack. That's the priority of this summer. That's what I'm told as of this morning. And I'm also advised of growing confidence in concluding a deal for Mbeumo and not to be surprised if updates surface in the next week. It is well documented that the player wants to move to Manchester United and the club wants him. You only have to look back to what I said a week ago. And I was advised this morning that Amorim is already preparing for next season with a view that he will have both Cunha and Mbeumo in his starting 11. So look at this practically, barring travesty. I don't imagine a world where this deal is not concluded. And to be totally honest, I have been calm about the lack of daily updates because of the time of year. And so many people forget this. So many of these youngsters on social media. You have to remember that Sunday week, which is June the 30th, marks the end of the financial year in the Premier League. And to that point, clubs must ensure that they remain compliant with the profit and sustainability rules, and that is before they submit their accounts. With that, and the fact that it is June, and despite that the money is being shelled out to these individuals, every single human being is entitled to a vacation. I advise you to stop refreshing the phone every 30 seconds, people. When David Ornstein is ready to break the internet, he will happily do so. And I would be flabbergasted if Manchester United don't seal this deal in a matter of weeks. But this leads me to another question from long-time listener and supporter Ger Coyne, who got in touch on Twitter. Hello, Ger. I hope you're doing well, my man. He asks, if United don't land Gyökeres, Osimhen or Ekitike, would it make sense to look at the likes of Ali Watkins or an older striker and just keep hold of Højlund and allow him to learn his trade from a more senior striker while rotating with him? So to that, sir, I would categorically say yes. And my reasoning is not tied to a long-standing affiliation for the success of Rasmus. It's more so looking at not recreating the issues of years gone by and splurging huge amount of money on the wrong targets. For me, it all boils down to one simple fact. I would hate for Manchester United to fail in their pursuits for mega money strikers and then panic in trying to find a replacement. It's what we've seen for so long. However, as I said last week, this is a new regime, and it is one that has been planning for the bones of 6 or 7 months. The club has its targets, contrary to what you're told on a daily basis from whatever account it is. And while Amorim will undoubtedly have been disappointed to learn about Gyökeres and his desire to play in London, this doesn't mean that the club will pack everything in and fire the rattle out of the pram. It is far better to take stock and to supply a temporary alternative at a lesser price And that is my firm belief. It's something I'll always stand by. And I stand by it because it's far better than shelling out unthinkable money on a player who doesn't fit the bill here and now. When you mention Ollie Watkins, he's a great player and he's tried and tested in England. He knows where the net is, most importantly. Can you get him cheap, though? That's the question, and I doubt it. He's not out of contract for 3 years, I believe. But the idea is correct in supplying Rasmus with a veteran striker. And the whole idea of that is to shoulder the load and to provide education and support. It is undoubtedly the greatest issue that the Dane has encountered in being the fall guy for a ridiculous regime that made error after error and, call a spade, landed an unproven kid in the unthinkable position of leading the line for one of the most underperforming top-tier sides in Europe. But look at it like this. In 2024-25, the whole world saw a Rasmus Højlund that was devoid of any confidence. It's as simple as that. He didn't believe he could put the ball in the back of the net. However, from December until the end of the previous season, we witnessed a record-breaking youngster match the output and the metrics of the league's finest finishers, like Erling Haaland, Alexander Isak, Mo Salah, Cole Palmer at the time. And people forget that. What you have to take a step back and you actually have to realise, there is a valid reason why the likes of Juventus and Inter Milan are so keen to acquire his services. As I said previously, nothing is guaranteed in football, and I'll always come back to this. Højlund may be gone too far past rekindling that sort of form, but then at the same time he may not. And who knows what he could achieve beside a shrewd, wily veteran while the club recalculates its options ahead of another summer window. And staying on that topic, Ian Curry got in touch on Facebook and he asks, what is your thoughts on United being linked to Ekitike? And do you know much about him? Or is there a striker on my radar that I would like to see in a United top that has maybe not been linked to the club? Thank you for getting in touch, sir. It is much appreciated. Now, on Ekitike, yes, he's a superb forward who has the attributes and the physical advantages to lead a line or to work as part of a unit. This season has obviously been his breakthrough year with a return of 22 goals and 12 assists. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know from a metric perspective, then I don't know what will. As I published recently, at 6'3", he's tall and he's slender and he has a frame that looks similar to a player in the NBA. But one thing is his long limbs, they offer a massive advantage when dueling for a loose ball or a long pass from a teammate. He's capable of playing with his back to goal and to holding up for onrushing teammates, but he's also tidy with both feet and he is surprisingly technical with quick acceleration, and he's also got that low center of gravity, something like you would have seen in recent years with Sergio Aguero. And that said, I can't escape this because I have been scarred by recent Bundesliga signings. And when you're looking at a fee in the region of 80 million euros, I mean, I worry about the possibilities of him struggling to adapt immediately and ultimately encountering a similar fate to Rasmus. As we know, the English press doesn't hold back when sharing their discontent for Manchester United. When you flip it, and in terms of an alternative name, there's so many there, Ian, but I find it hard to look past somebody like Jonathan David. He's someone that I covered many months ago. At 25, he's a proven goal scorer who could offer an alternative option in the forward line. The question is, do I think he could successfully complete the requirements of an Amorim system? And that's where I'm unsure. But at the same time, if he agreed to reduce his wage demands, I'd like to think that there are more potential upsides than turnoffs with him. Remember, he is a player who has previously registered an interest of playing in the Premier League. And also, when I've mentioned the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules, you're talking about a player that's not going to impact a transfer fee. Not only am I unsurprised that he's not been linked with major clubs around Europe, it kind of leads the question as to why that is occurring in the first place. I suppose very similar to the conversation that's been had about Gyökeres, but I followed him for quite some time in Ligue 1, and he's a very, very talented player. So I would expect him to go on and have a pretty prolonged career in Europe, and he could be an option. But with all of this talk of strikers, there is a concern regarding the midfield, and many believe the club needs to target recruits there. Theatre of Red writer Jerry Kelleher has chipped in on the debate, And he said, I would be interested to hear your thoughts on a possible midfielder incoming later on in the window. Middlesbrough's Hayden Hackney has been mentioned, one of a couple of gems in the Championship. Would he be of legitimate interest to Ruben Amorim this summer? Or are there any other central midfielders that you've heard about on our radar? So to begin, Hackney is a superb talent. And at a couple of days shy of 23, obviously fits the criteria for this Ineos rebuild. There have been widespread reports about his availability following Middlesbrough's failure to win promotion. When you really hone in on it, you'd be looking in the region of 20 to 30 million pounds to acquire his services. And while that is reasonable, it remains unclear if United are actively looking at pursuing him. Naturally, when you have a talented player performing well for any championship side, especially at his age, it's going to generate interest. I mean, come on, look, this is someone that Jerry and I have discussed on many times, but you only need to look at the likes of Adam Wharton and how he has thrived since making the move from Blackburn for 22 million to Crystal Palace. And obviously, he's another player that many would adore to see at the Theatre of Dreams. But I believe it is important to factor internally first and address the many mitigating factors surrounding what exists in the squad today. Firstly, it has become a weekly talking point, but many have moved to disregard Kobbie Mainoo after somewhat of a hit-and-miss season. And that is despite being touted as the next big thing in English football 12 months ago. A confidence does remain about a new contract for the midfielder. And as I've said many times, he possesses all of the talent, the desire and technical ability to shine in a midfield. And that, I believe, is regardless of people's opinions about his suitability to this particular system. When you move away from Kobbie, you've got to factor in Toby Collier. He's a player that Amorim rates incredibly high, not only for his ability, but his temperament, his work rate on the training field, and his adherence to instructions. He's valued very highly by the current structure, and many forget he's only 21 years of age. Then you factor in the destroyer in Manuel Ugarte. He's a player that much has been said about, and I feel many of it is inaccurate. He was never purchased to be a Pirlo. He was brought in to destroy opposition play and pass off to his more creative teammates. It's that simple. You've seen recent debate about Ben Jacobs' suggestion that United figures rate him highly and feel that he's a player who will continue to grow at the club without speaking to a soul on the matter. I believe that he is an extremely talented boy who can and will thrive in this system. The areas that he excels at are the areas that he was brought in to facilitate. You expand on this and you look at the excess of number 10s and the new arrivals. Bruno naturally drops deeper to affect the game from a midfield to an advancing role. The question lands about where a new recruit would fit in. And that's even before you factor in the likes of Casemiro, who, despite the club being open to offloading, appears no closer to departing at the time of me speaking. Now, the natural response to a shambolic season is to burn it all down and to start again with 7 or 8 new players. Unfortunately, that is not how this works, particularly when you factor in PSR and UEFA's financial restrictions. As far as I have heard, attacking recruits remain the primary target in complementing a squad of players that are largely valued by the manager. What comes after, be it in midfield, in goals, or even with a further attacking fullback, remains in the air. It's important at this stage that I would like to remind everybody, as we have previously broken a very, very large interest in Roger Fernandes from Braga, that remains as evident today. He is a player of considerable attraction for this new look structure and would represent a cheap acquisition with a massive ceiling for growth to affect the game on the wing, while also having the ability to do so in attack. I mean, he's currently playing at the Under-21 European Championships with Portugal, and we can confirm today that United are monitoring every minute played, and the club remains very interested in luring him to the northwest. So while nothing is at an advanced stage on that one just yet, I would say to keep an eager eye on Roger Fernandes, folks. And on that, I shall say goodbye to you all today. As always, it has been a pleasure to share some time, and thank you for giving me a little bit of yours today. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening, and please leave us a review. As I always say, each one is much appreciated. You can follow us on every single social platform at the theatre_of_red, and you can keep up to date with our daily news and exclusives on the official Theatre of Red website. Of course, we'll be back next week to share some more time with you all. So until then, much love and enjoy the weekend and the sun while it is there.